pretty much, you know, so there's new
Hmm.
groups coming up all the time as well.
That's right. And never to forget that while the people's champion is leading you this way, you know, like the Pied Piper, he's doing that on purpose because he doesn't want you to know about these ideologues that are behind it. He doesn't want you to know how incredibly clever they are, both sociologically and psychologically. They have to work in the dark, you see, because they're the engineers of consent, and they're the engineers of the global village. And it's important that we never find out about them or the clubs that they belong to, how old the traditions are, what kind of philosophies lie behind what we see taking place. Which is, and one of the things, let me give you a perfect example. Not only are they aware that man's ego is a result of ancient trauma, they're aware of that. They're also aware that there's a faculty within the ego of man that wants to create chaos. I mean, even just purely unilaterally, with your own mind, your own ego on a day-to-day basis. People, it's so close to us, we've never noticed it. Loves to troubleshoot problems. You and I had talked about this in our Outsider series in a slightly different context, you know, about how then it creates the whole guilt trip and the inauthentic life.
Yeah.
Well, these masters of the social engineers are aware of this faculty. They know deeply about the nature of the ego. And one of the things about the ego is that it feels empowered and it feels of utility. It has a sense of utility by literally creating problems. We manifest it into our lives, and then the ego feels satisfied that it's remedying these problems, and it gives the ego a sense of its own self. And this is a remarkable faculty. So they don't mind then creating also chaos from the outside, because this will then reinforce the ego. It gives the ego something to do, and then you have the parliament of voices and all the sects and fringe groups and all the political parties and this whole cacophony of separatism, you see, and pluralism. This is also something that keeps person running out into the external world, makes them very outer-directed, and that then is the vulnerable creature who can be swayed by the public consensus. You know, it's very much brought out in the Prisoner series by Patrick McGowan, where you constantly see this in several of the episodes that he made, of just this cacophony of different voices and different sects and different segments and different perspectives, this pluralism. But all the time, that pluralism is in orbit around a central idea, which is to keep people in their ego and in fixing what isn't broken, you know?
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about the architects and ministers of slavehood, Michael. We've talked a little bit about it here, but I think there's some more things that we can mention about this.
Yeah, I mean, you not only have the architects of, well, first of all, you not only have the architects of control, you have the architecture of control. And we've talked about that in the DVD and other areas. There's two phenomena there. There's the architecture itself, and then you have the architects, who are, again, the sort of the pages and the exons who run around to, you know, manifest the philosophy behind the architecture. And then you've got the ministers themselves, the ministers who know how to maintain the slaveocracy, the slavehood of human beings. And I believe personally that they look at it as like an art or like a game. And what we have to realize again is that to them, they get a great deal of enjoyment out of it, but they also follow some very practical stratagems. And these are coming from the Orwellian schools, the Pavlovian schools, behaviorism. We have to actually understand these modalities. They can be studied. You know, the Pavlovian idea of behaviorism, the Orwellian experiment, the aversion therapies that are often used here, and also basically the indoctrination processes. You know, but we'll not see it. We'll not address it, as most people are not addressing, until you finally fundamentally understand that your allegiances are completely contrived. They're not something that you really inwardly are identifying with. That's contrived. Your own sense of self. Can you imagine that? Your own sense of selfhood is contrived. Your view of the leaders is contrived. You know, your view of the opposite sex is contrived. Your view of nature is contrived. You know, your attitude towards your religions and your God is contrived. It's not original to you. These are you want to fight against. You want to fight for individualism and freedom and liberty, but you have no idea what collectivism is or how it comes about. This is the study. This is the absolute study. And